Scotland had nothing to lose, and after victories by Ireland and England, France needed the win to secure the 2025 Six Nations. There was some tension in the Paris air, but that only added to what was a fantastic game of rugby. Hello, amateurs. Welcome back to our Six Nations series, and I've got Mr. Happiness's Eggshaped, Bruce Aitchison, with me again today. Bruce, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Sunday morning, the day after the night before, but it was a pretty super Saturday. Mixed, I think, for the Six Nations, but no, as I was saying to you before we hit record, a lot to reflect on over a pretty interesting tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mentioned the tension in the Paris air there, but Scotland looked really relaxed pre-game, I thought. There was a bit of laughing and joking in the anthems, and I thought that was a good frame set, sort of mindset to go into this game with.
Yeah, I've spoken about this a few times to a few different people. If you watch the Women's Six Nations, the women smile and show the positive emotions, because let's not kid ourselves that the frown is not emotion, but the women seem far more open and smiling and laughing and sort of look like they're enjoying the moment. And I think yesterday, you're right, Scotland did look like they were ready, and that's possibly a Finn influence. Finn, he missed a kick and had a kind of smile on his face, and people, that sometimes winds people up about Finn because they think he doesn't care. Finn Russell cares, but he also enjoys his job and what he does. So I also think, like your point, we had nothing to lose. Like, it was a chance to have a crack. 80,000 people. It's the hope that kills you as a Scotland sports fan, never mind rugby fan. So to go to France, who are possibly the best team in the world at the moment, even without Dupont, and they went okay, but this is, it's becoming the Scottish motto. We played well, but we didn't win the game.
Yeah, and but it did look a little bit ominous in the opening stages as France turned up the power game, and particularly the French maul, I thought, was quite effective on the night. Were you worried during those opening phases?
I was worried from before the kickoff when France named 7 forwards on the bench. The game's changed in a way that doesn't necessarily excite me, but that French pack, if those 7 on the bench had started, it still would have been a ridiculous pack. So the power was going to be there, and Scotland don't really have the match of that across the whole, and then potentially, the 6 that they had on the bench. So it was always going to be a challenge, and it's that old Scottish thing of, let's move them around, let's try and have really quick rucks, let's create front football, but big teams are there to stop you doing that, and that those mauls are frightening. If you get them set properly and the referee allows you to do that they are damning, and it sucks the energy out of you, and it means you can't make a mistake. And Scotland did make a mistake. They were punished not necessarily by a maul, but by a speed and the acceleration that Ntamak and Pierre have. It was just incredible. But the first 15 minutes, I thought, we could be on the end of something pretty sore here.
Yeah, Scotland attacked pretty well, though, at times, I thought. I thought they moved the ball around, and it was just some errors at critical times when it looked like they might have got France a little bit on the ropes, and then just a drop pass here or somebody overrun a ball there, and like the chance was gone immediately. So that's a little bit heartbreaking on the Scottish side as well.
And those are things that suck the energy out of you, and they give to the opposition. Those 14-point swings are killers. It happened to us in Rome last year with Italy. We should have scored, and we end up the other end conceding 7 points, and it gives the momentum to the other team. And France are so lethal, and the Scotland team, that back line is really, really strong. Potentially, and this is the local bias that I have, 6 of those 7 in the back line could be Lions. And if they were behind an Irish pack, potentially that English pack that played yesterday, they might be able to show that. And I was with Magnus Bradbury and Johnny Matthews yesterday, and we were talking about, Magnus actually gave me a little bit of credit. He said, yeah, I think you were right, because we've spent a bit of time together over the Six Nations, and I was saying the difference between the number of Scottish Lions in January and April could have been quite interesting. At the start of the year, even people like Danny Kerr were picking a bundle of Scots in a Lions team, whereas now I'm not sure the entirety of the Scottish performances across the competition have actually given the players that shop window and that opportunity to be selected. But I mean, you never know. It's Andy Farrell's decision, but that Scottish backline are able to win, and they've got players in that team who have now got silverware to show that they can win. It's just getting them consistent ball that they didn't have to overrun or fin through a ball into touch to somebody that wasn't there, because probably we'd had to put too many people in to win the ball. That then meant we didn't have somebody in that position for Finn to throw the ball to. So, there's lots of little details that have a knock-on effect. But I mean, Scotland have attacked reasonably well across the Six Nations, but we know we can do that.
Yeah, I'd say one of the players I think that stood out for me for the Scots, and he got your first try, was Darcy Graham. He showed up all over the place, and I know he's one of your favourites, and he's so dynamic with everything that he does. Like in a tight game of rugby, like international game typically is, to have somebody that can just break it up, find a shoulder, beat a defender unexpectedly. It's so valuable.
But he also carries a threat across the pitch. So Scotland yesterday, I reckon Darcy, and I've not got any stats to back this up, but it felt like Darcy had more touches yesterday than he's possibly had in 3 or 4 internationals combined. He came looking for the ball in and around the breakdown. Now, if he's got space, he's able to accelerate through and create something or score a try. Unfortunately, if there are defenders there waiting for him, Darcy's still a small player and can get smacked. But I thought the way he went looking yesterday was really dangerous. If I could pay for anybody to go on a Lions tour, and I reckon if I made a GoFundMe page, it would make millions to get Darcy Graham on that flight, because it would mean so much to him. And rugby's everything to him in the best way. He's a great guy. He's a great human. He's got deep roots in the town of Hawick and at Hawick Rugby Club. He's loved by all his teammates. I was sitting with Magnus Bradbury and Johnny Matthews yesterday. The cheer they gave when Darcy scored that try was real. It was just joy at Darcy being successful. Everybody wants Darcy to be a Lion. And I would love to have the cameras on Darcy Graham on Lions announcement day if his name is called, because it would just be one of those moments that everybody would remember, because it means so much to him. And he's a fabulous rugby player. And he's got one of those things that not many other people have. He's got that X factor that you can't. I always wary when I say these things, but you can't necessarily coach it. It's this desire that he has in him to go and play, to enjoy what he does. And I always say he's like Scrappy Doo. He's got no idea how small he is. He thinks he's the biggest dog in the fight, and he's absolutely not. But it just gives him this courage and this likability that just transcends. I think everybody in other countries loves a Darcy Graham, because he's the evidence that actually a little guy can still do it. And that's why I get a bit sad when you have 7 forwards on the bench, because we preach this thing that rugby's a game for all shapes and sizes, but actually making a statement like that, it's really for the big giants.
And talking of big giants, your man on the other wing, I thought he had a really industrious game as well. And I thought a few times he was just a moment away from making the break, from scoring the spectacular try. And I counted like 4 to 5 times there were situations like that. He just couldn't get away in this game.
But Duan's one of those players. He's a bit like Darcy. Defences heighten their awareness when a player like that gets on the ball. Teams don't really let him off the hook. Well, England do, let's face it. Over the most recent history, they have switched off. But it's almost like I have to make this tackle on Duan van der Merwe, because if I don't, he's going to carve this up. That when he passed the ball to Blair for Blair's break, myself, Johnny, and Maggie were like, "Hang on, Duan's just why is Duan past that? Usually he just charges, but there's a bit more to Duan." And when he covered that kick through, ran into his own try area and brought the ball out. The bounce of rugby ball is a beautiful thing sometimes, and that was a nice bounce for Duan. But Duan wants to play well, and he loves playing for Scotland, and the Scottish crowd have been good to him. He's scored, he's their top try scorer, so things have been pretty good for him. But he gives himself a really hard time as well. So it's a funny one. He doesn't carry the weight on his shoulders of the nation, as the Netflix documentary depicted. we don't have that expectation on Duan. We know what Duan is, and we love him for it, and we want him to do well. And yesterday, I think you're right. I think there was a bit more industry than spectacular from Duan than maybe we've seen historically.
Yeah, and another player you just mentioned there, who I also thought probably had his best game of the championship, was Blair Kinghorn, and it was his searing break from a kick through that led to what appeared to be a Tom Jordan try just on half time that would have given the Scots the lead going into the sheds, and who knows what could have happened then. But elbow in touch was the call. Blair Kinghorn was just in
Oh,
touch. How were you feeling?
yeah, I mean, when they scored that, my arms were in the air. I thought, wow, like you said, previously, 15 minutes in, I thought, wow, we're on the end of hiding here. It then looked like we're going in at half time, tails up, and that stupid saying of it's a great time to score just before half time. But it genuinely felt like that. I was like, wow, we're up at half time, and Magnus Bradbury, who I was with, he's going to be Blair's best man in the summer, and Blair's going to be Maggie's best man in the summer. So he was delighted for his best mate to score this try, and then it gets chopped off. But Blair's a phenomenal rugby player. Like, talking of Lions, Blair Kinghorn to be in a Lions test team, I think would be lethal. Unfortunately, Scotland just haven't been able to create enough opportunities for Blair, Darcy and Duhan to have space to be able to create things. It's been off kick returns or maybe broken bits of play. And Blair hasn't maybe hit the heights that we thought he was going to in this Six Nations, but yesterday he showed definitely what he's capable of. And playing in France has been an amazing thing for him. I mean, the quality of player that he is playing alongside can only be good. That kind of, a high tide raises all boats. Blair playing in that environment, in that relentless competition that is the top 14, is good for Scotland, and it gives someone else an opportunity at Edinburgh to have a crack. And hopefully guys like Harry Patterson are going to come through and show themselves as well. But there's a lot to be excited about in Scottish rugby. Unfortunately, there's a lot to shrug your shoulders and raise your eyebrows at, that we've still finished fourth in a tournament that we get excited about every year. And yeah, it's like being dumped, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be proud of, though, and particularly another guy that I respect so much in that Scottish team, Xander Fagerson, doing another 80 minutes in a game like that, and he carried the ball all the way to the end of the game. I thought he was absolutely outstanding for Scotland.
Yeah, and Xander has been given a lot of plaudits in the last 2 or 3 years because everybody's realised quite how good he is. Fraser Brown, who played hooker alongside him for Glasgow and Scotland, said if he was in the Premiership, we'd be talking about him as one of the best tight heads in the world. But somehow the URC still maybe not getting the credit that some people think it deserves and that players in the URC maybe deserve. But Xander works really hard. Johnny Matthews, who I was with yesterday, is his teammate at Glasgow Warriors, and he was saying Xander does a lot that people don't see to give him the chance to play for 80 minutes. Coming back to a point of being grumping about the 7 on the bench or 6 on the bench, players want to play for whole games. I'd still debate that anybody wants to only play for 50 minutes or come off the bench for 30 minutes. Xander wants to play. And, I don't know if it's going to damage the length of his career, but he's so important to Scotland that we almost need him in bubble wrap. And I think he'll be a Lion. I would certainly hope he'll be a Lion again. I think he deserves it with the performances he's put in and the consistency that he shows. He might not be a 10 out of 10 player, but he's seldom below a 7 or an 8 in any game. And yesterday, playing against that French pack for 50 minutes is brutal. To play against a then fresh, pretty much whole pack that comes on, and to keep that level of performance for 80 minutes from Xander, if I had a hat on, I'd take it off to him. And I love the guy. He's such a down-to-earth guy, talking about Darcy having roots in Hawick. Xander's an ambassador for Strathmore, and I know you're aware of the work that Strathmore Rugby Club do up here. And Xander and Matt are ambassadors for the community trust, and they still go back, they still give to the club. These are good humans. Darcy Graham, Xander Fagerson, Matt Fagerson. These are good humans who just happen to be very good rugby players.
Yeah, I mean, we've been speaking mostly about Scotland so far, which is obvious when I'm speaking to you, Bruce, but we must say some huge plaudits to the French for winning this championship. They probably will feel they weren't anywhere near their best last night, I would say, but they still have that ability to just execute skills in the core moments and get over the try line. And I think all of their tries probably showed that.
Yeah, the French are setting the standard. I think they don't have to be 10 out of 10, and they can play well and get the result. The England game, I still wonder. I'd love to have been in the changing room to see how they reacted and responded to that performance. It was a blip. I think they are deserving of the overall championship, and to do it without Dupont shows that it's not all about him. And I think he would probably be the first to say it's not all about him. He does look like he has so much time when he plays, and he never really looks like he's going at 100%, frustratingly. But, if you think that the fourth best French scrum half keeps Scotland's first choice scrum half out of the club team, I mean, that's frightening. That is absolutely frightening. And I think the French have probably become more likeable, although I still think the hooker should have had a red card and not been allowed to return to the pitch and not have a replacement. And I think Ramos deserved a yellow for his part in that episode, but maybe that's for another discussion. But I think the French have become more likeable because of the way they play. They've still got that French element that we all love, that spontaneity, that able to read a situation in front of them and pull something out of the hat. But then they've got this muscle game, and they can kick, and annoyingly they've got it all. And I think they've now set the standard that I think England are maybe not going to be that far away. I'm interested to see the Irish journey over this next period of time into the World Cup, to see how they can develop and improve, going through a bit of a changing of the guard a little bit. So the French, I've been there last night. I know Scotland lost, but to be in a home stadium, 80,000 people, they win the championship last year when I was in Rome and we lost to Italy. I was gutted that Scotland lost, but I was so happy for the Italians, and the way they responded and reacted and partied was unreal. I think Paris would have been absolutely rocking last night, and I would love to have been there. I think it's probably a good thing. They've broken up the Irish a little bit. Next year, looking into my crystal ball, England will be a year better, I think. I hope Wales will be better. I hope Italy will be better. I was gutted for Italy yesterday. Scotland, I hope, are still in there. I think next year's championship becomes even more ridiculous this year. I'm glad it's had twists and turns, because it might have been a little bit predictable. And this year, other than the Welsh shambles, the rest of it has been pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, it's been another good tournament for sure. Now, we'll bring this one to a close, Bruce, but any sort of final thoughts on this game or the Scottish performance or anything else you want to share?
Yeah, it's a phrase that has annoyed me for a long time, the golden generation. England football team had it, but they weren't a golden generation because they didn't win anything. Scotland don't have a golden generation. What we've got is a good group of players. We've got some outstanding individuals. It was said that finishing fourth last year wasn't good enough. We finished fourth again. I never like seeing anybody lose their job, and I hope Gregor doesn't lose his job, and I've got lots of reasons for that. One, he's a hero of mine, and and I know him. I don't want him to lose his job. He's a good human. He's done a lot for Scottish rugby, and I hope he can continue. I also fear that the next coach, and potentially the next 2 or 3 Scotland coaches, won't be Scotsmen. And while I loved Vern Cotter, and I thought Vern did a great job, and I was sad to see him go, I think he got Scotland. I'm not sure we've had that from people who weren't Scottish. I think a lot of your identity comes from understanding the environment you're from and the culture you're from. And I think there was a while where international rugby was a bit bland because everybody was doing the same thing, mostly because we were all coached by Kiwis, and everybody was trying to play like the All Blacks, and I don't think we need to do that. I like that France can maul and England can be a bit boring, but and kick the ball up in the air. I think that works because it suits that group of players and that environment and that culture. it's not always for me, but I love that variety, and I think we need to hold on to it. So, I'm disappointed we finished fourth. I think I've become a bit of an Italy supporter. I really love watching Italy. I love the passion. I love to see they can sell out that stadium. So it's a phenomenal tournament. We're really lucky to have it. And the other announcement that pleased me during this Six Nations is that the game's going to stay free to air in the UK, which you and I would have grown up as kids watching cricket all summer. We had 4 TV channels. There was nothing else on but cricket. So you had to watch it. But we all knew about cricket. Whereas now, I couldn't tell you last time I watched a game of cricket because it's not free to air. And if we lost the Six Nations, I think we would lose the chance to grow the game in this country, these nations. So I'm glad for that. I'm not sure that was what you wanted in my answer, but I'm looking forward to Women's Six Nations. I'm really excited about that. I can't wait for the Women's Six Nations to kick off. I saw a couple of players on Friday night at the Edinburgh Saracens game. I saw Rona Lloyd and Rachel McLaughlin, who are 2 of my favourites, and I can't wait to see them in action, especially World Cup year. I really want to see some Lions on that, Scottish Lions. And, you've already heard me say it. If Darcy Graham was on that, I think, the town of Hawick would be partying long into the night. And for Darcy, it would be an absolute dream come true. So there's so many great stories to be positive about, and we need to keep telling in the way that you do. And the other great stat I saw was you've hit 1 million views on YouTube. So congratulations, Tim, my man. I'm delighted for you. I think, in fairness, 950,000 of those were people watching when I'm on, but I'll let you take the 50,000 for those other things. But mate, keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic, and I love you lots, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, mate. Really appreciated. When I throw you an open-ended question like that, I knew that there was going to be a lot coming back, no doubt. Fantastic passion for the game, mate. As always, it's what we all love. So brilliant stuff. And Scotland finishing fourth, I think they're a really, really good team, and it just shows how difficult the Six Nations is. Like they're good teams throughout, and it's such a short tournament that you can end up finishing fourth with a good team. So it's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. Okay, we'll bring that one to an end now, folks. But what do you think at home? Do you agree with any of the things that we said? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments down below, and we will join you there for a very friendly conversation. It just leaves me to say, Bruce, if the happiness is egg-shaped, thank you once again for your time and awesome insight today.
Thanks, pal. Good to see you.
You too. People at home, you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. And don't forget to get out and play.